Breaking chaos or scripted karma? T.I.'s son, King Harris, just flipped from flexing online to dripping blood in ICU after a savage jail ambush. Guards dragging him, cameras cutting out, fists landing please. This wasn't some playground scuffle. This was a setup straight from a Netflix script. And here's your twist. While King's fighting for his life, T.I. is supposedly crawling, calling judges, pleading with politicians, even dangling shady backroom deals to keep his boy breathing. Picture it, the self-proclaimed King of the South, now reduced to groveling like never before. But the burning question frying the internet tonight was King punished for arrogance? His flashy name or secrets dangerous enough to torch the Harris empire? Stay locked in, because what unravels will make you rethink everything about fame, family, and survival. The Harris legacy, once dripping with limos, cameras, and cash, just slammed headfirst into brutal reality. That crash came ugly inside Georgia's unforgiving prison walls. King Harris, son of moguls T.I. and Tiny, who once basked in chefs and reality TV lights, was yanked into ICU after a savage ambush on his block. Imagine the boy flexing gold on Instagram now, flexing stitches in a hospital bed. If that ain't a vicious plot twist, what is? The story didn't kick off in ICU, that was just the bloody sequel. No. This train wreck was years brewing. King always wanted to cosplay about that life, even when the script didn't fit. Who could forget his Waffle House meltdown back in 2022? Shouting at workers, threatening to throw hands, trying to act gangster over hash browns like it was a rap video shoot. Social media roasted him alive, bro. You grew up in Buckhead, not the trenches. That one tantrum alone proved he wasn't ready for the smoke he was begging for. Fast forward to now, and the same cocky flexing going live with stacks of cash ended up painting a bullseye on his back once he hit prison walls. Let's rewind. King was never meant to face more than a wrist slap for skipping court and running wild. But when those dusty warrants came crawling back, it snowballed. DUI charges, reckless driving, suspended license mistakes stacking up like Jenga blocks ready to topple. When the law finally nabbed him, reality smacked him like a freight train. No IG Live, no filters, just cold bars and men who didn't care who his daddy was. That's where the nightmare officially began. Insiders swear King strutted in loud, cocky, acting like his last name was armor. But inside those walls, ego isn't protection, it's bait. Inside those walls, none of that flashy talk matters. Clout can't buy safety, and fame doesn't guarantee respect. In fact, it paints a bigger target on your back. The moment a celebrity steps through those gates, the sharks start circling. One former inmate put it bluntly: they'll break you down, test you, or turn you into a pawn. And King, he was perfect bait. Word is, his ambush was no spur-of-the-moment brawl. Inmates allegedly plotted it for weeks because he couldn't stop bragging about his dad's empire, calling himself Atlanta's true heir, even tossing insults at others locked up with him. That's like pouring gasoline on a room full of matches. Resentment piled high, tension kept simmering, and then came the blackout cameras cutting at the perfect time. That's when fists flew, boots stomped, and King was left crumpled, barely conscious, his celebrity ripped away in seconds. The savagery shocked even the guards. Sources claim they had to drag him out while the entire block exploded into chaos. By the time he hit the infirmary, his face was swollen past recognition. ICU was the next stop. And for T.I., that phone call had to be pure healtha. Man who beat federal charges, built an empire. Now hearing his son was fighting for his life, King just couldn't stay out of trouble. How's that for irony? The same father who once scolded his son on IG Live warning prison was waiting, is now the one begging the system to release him before it buries him. And here's where things turn darker. Insiders whisper, this wasn't only about King's arrogance. They claim a contraband deal went sideways. His name allegedly showed up in a prison ledger. A promise made, then broken, and inside. Broken promises get repaid in blood. Even creepier, surveillance cameras near the scene conveniently cut out minutes before the attack. Georgia's Department of Corrections called it a technical glitch. But come on, who's swallowing that excuse? As one of T.I.'s ex-road managers snapped, in Georgia, cameras break when they're supposed to break. Outside those walls, chaos hit instantly. Social media exploded once word spread about the ambush. Hashtags like #PrayForKing and #HarrisFamilyCrisis shot up on Twitter. TikTok drowned in hot takes. Some fans pleaded for his survival, while others roasted him without mercy. One viral post mocked, King finally met the real world, and it hit harder than he ever dreamed. Another sneered, you can't buy respect with daddy's money. The divide online, brutal and crystal clear. Half the audience saw a victim, the other half cheered karma served cold. Back home, the Harris household was unraveling fast. Insiders muttered that T.I. hadn't slept since the assault. He was firing off calls to lawyers, politicians, and old street contacts, scrambling to pull strings. Tiny, meanwhile, went into crisis control mode, ringing PR favors, managing the media narrative, and trying desperately to shield their younger children from the fallout. But people close to them say the pressure is tearing the family apart. Fingers are being pointed, one source said. Tiny accuses T.I. of raising him too hard, while T.I. blames Tiny for making him soft. Either way, their son's suffering is the collateral damage. And don't forget public image. For years, T.I. sold himself as the wise OG, a mentor who turned his mistakes into lessons for his kids. Watching King implode like this is wrecking that carefully built persona. Online critics were merciless, posting all that preaching, and he still couldn't save his own kid. The same man who publicly scolded his son is now the man. Watching him fall into the trap he predicted, that's not only painful, it's humiliating. But the bigger question floating everywhere is obvious. Was King targeted merely for who he is? Or is this a deeper plot designed to shatter the Harris dynasty once and for all? Sources warn more leaks and legal headaches could follow, turning private pain into public spectacle and lawsuits today. So think about it, Harris has always been drama bait. From lawsuits and scandals to those whispery trafficking rumors, T.I. and Tiny have tried to bury behind prison gates. Gossip becomes ammunition. King walked into that chaos with a bullseye on his back. That prison ambush was savage, but many insiders say it was only the opening salvo in a much larger war. When a family this high-profile implodes, vultures start circling and the whispers insist they're not done. Just when you reckon it can't get worse, leaks begin. Anonymous tips, inside reports, and claims that this wasn't merely a brawl but a message, a warning. A setup. Those whispers argue this wasn't about King mouthing off or flexing like he was untouchable. No, this was order zoops. Rumors say the attack was staged not by random inmates, but by powerful players inside and outside those prison walls. Maybe even a direct shot across T.I.'s bow. The point? Fame, money, and influence didn't save his kid once the system closed in. If that sounds like a Hollywood plot, welcome to the darker, grimmer sequel. One source close to the prison told reporters off the record, it wasn't just a fight. They set him up. They wanted proof stamped in blood that King Harris wasn't cut for this life. One insider even swore correctional officers looked the other way as the beatdown unfolded. Let that sink in, guards. Allegedly allowing the son of a hip-hop mogul to be stomped out just to send a message. If that's real, this isn't negligence, it's corruption at the top. And here's the jaw-dropper. When King was dragged to the infirmary, battered and barely breathing, he allegedly gasped, "Tell my pops, this ain't over. Tell him I know who's behind it." Those words, if true, flipped the internet on its head. Who was he calling out? Another inmate, a rival family, or someone tied to his father's shadowy past? That question lit social media on fire. Suddenly, this wasn't a prison fight, it was a conspiracy saga with the Harris empire dead center. On Twitter, hashtags like #freaking, #TExposed, and #PrayForHarris trended back to back. TikTok detectives went wild, stitching King's old IG lives, linking his cocky behavior to the karma now smashing him. One viral edit even resurfaced that infamous Falcons game clip where T.I. yanked King in a headlock, cut next to King unconscious in ICU. The caption, "Daddy warned him. The streets confirmed it. Daddy warned him. The streets confirmed it." Within hours, millions of views poured in as memes stacked higher than the outrage. Fans split FASM, insisting the system deliberately targeted King because of his last name, while others pointed to an even darker motive. One anonymous insider claimed this had nothing to do with flexing and everything to do with silencing him. Too much talk, too many receipts, and suddenly YouTube commentators were in a frenzy, speculating if King had stumbled into information or been forced into silence about his family's buried scandals. And let's not pretend the Harris legacy is squeaky clean. Those trafficking allegations shadowing T.I. and Tiny never completely disappeared, denied, swept aside, yet always whispered in the background. They resurfaced in conversations the second King was ambushed. With their son fighting for survival behind bars, people started connecting dots. What if this wasn't random at all? What if it tied back to old debts, shady deals gone wrong, or enemies still circling for revenge? Reports say T.I. completely unraveled, burning phones day and night, calling politicians, begging lawyers, even leaning on old street connections to keep King safe. But insiders warned his desperation was backfiring. Every call, every promise, every favor wasn't burying the problem, it was shining a brighter, harsher spotlight on King, making him an even bigger target inside. A bigger spotlight on King, inside. You do not want that, and prison attention turns you into prey, plain and simple. But just when folks thought the night couldn't sink lower, the the whispers turned into sobbing. An anonymous account? Closed doors. Insiders say she's breaking down, crying nonstop and begging T.I. to back off before everything spirals. He's not listening. T.I. is a man on fire, dialing everyone he knows, and he won't stop until his son is out. That relentless determination could save King, or it could drag him into more danger. Meanwhile, prison corridors hummed with darker rumors. This wasn't a random beat, it was betrayal. Sources claim some inmates played the long game befriending King, lulling him into false safety, then striking when the time was right. Even uglier, his name allegedly showed up in a contraband ledger tied to a botched deal. In there, a broken promise is a death sentence, and then the cameras conveniently died minutes before the ambush. Officials blamed a glitch, but nobody's buying it. When the blackout aligns so perfectly with the attack, the pattern looks deliberate, and that's what has everyone asking whether King was set up, or worse, being used to send a message. In Georgia, everyone knows cameras don't just malfunction, they glitch exactly when someone wants them to. Even guards hinted off the record that powerful hands made sure King's ambush wouldn't be caught. By the time he hit ICU, the Harris empire was already cracking. Public perception was savage. Headlines screamed King Harris attacked in jail, while gossip blogs feasted, dragging up every meltdown, reckless move, and entitled stunt from his past. One blogger sneered, he wanted to be gangster. Now he's learning the streets don't do refunds. Another shot back. This ain't about King, it's about a system addicted to humbling celebrity kids. While the internet argued, the Harris household combusted. Insiders spilled about shouting matches between T.I. and Tiny screaming, "You raised him too hard," while T.I. snapped, "You spoiled him too soft." Their marriage, once polished for reality TV as unbreakable, suddenly looked like it was caving under the weight of their son's implosion. Friends admitted this was the darkest chapter they'd ever seen. Uglier than lawsuits, deeper than scandals, worse than any scripted drama. And the online detectives weren't finished. Users started pulling up old clips of King flaunting guns in music videos and mocking rivals, piecing together receipts to prove this downfall was years in the making. Clips of him on live dissing rivals only fueled the fire. Suddenly the narrative twisted. Was King truly a victim, or did he march himself straight into the chaos he's drowning in? Some argued, yes, he courted danger, and now the bill's due. Others countered, no, he's just a pawn in a much bigger game being played way above his head. Then came the wildest twist yet. A so-called leaked report blasted across blogs, claiming investigators suspect the ambush might trace back to T.I. himself, not as the puppet master, but as collateral damage from old beefs and debts left unsettled. If true, King didn't just stumble into prison politics. He became a weapon turned against his own father, a son paying the price for the sins of his father straight out of a Greek tragedy. Except this nightmare is unfolding under the buzzing fluorescent lights of a Georgia prison. The irony bites T.I., the same man who once lectured King on Instagram. Warning, prison awaited if he didn't straighten up, is now watching that prophecy crash down in the harshest way possible. And this time it isn't about tough love, it's about survival. As T.I. claws to save his son, the empire shows cracks, whispers grow louder, and enemies close in. One chilling question lingers, is this the Harris dynasty's collapse? The opening battle of their darkest, most brutal war yet? Insiders warn the ambush wasn't the finale of King's nightmare. It was only Act 1. Word out of Atlanta spread like wildfire. Prosecutors suddenly had new footage. A hidden contraband phone allegedly captured King Harris smack in the middle of a deal gone wrong inside the jail. The grainy clip showed him surrounded by inmates arguing over scraps before fists started flying. And then came the bombshell. Whispers say King shouted 9 words that sealed his fate. "This ain't mine, it's my daddy's business." Boom. The internet didn't need context, didn't want facts. Those 9 words were gasoline on the fire. Overnight the story flipped. King wasn't seen as a victim anymore. He was branded the whistleblower who dragged T.I.'s name back into the mud. Memes, threads, TikTok breakdowns exploded, painting him as the son who cracked under pressure and sold out his father. Reports say T.I. went nuclear. One court insider swore they heard him slam a table, barking at his attorneys. "Y'all better bury that footage before it buries us." Picture it. The same man who built his empire on being untouchable, now reduced to begging his own legal team to save him from his son's loose lips. And the timing. Absolutely catastrophic. Couldn't have been worse. While T.I. panicked, the DA's office practically drooled. Rumors swirled, prosecutors were dusting off old files, ready to drag forgotten investigations back into the spotlight, using King's leaked words as the match to reignite the fire. Think about it. The scenes of the father colliding head-on with the son's mistakes packaged into one explosive scandal. Meanwhile, King's condition in ICU became a national obsession. News anchors argued over whether he was stable, unstable, or clinging to life. Tabloids exaggerated he'd been unresponsive for days, while others whispered about fresh confessions muttered from his hospital bed. Nobody knew the truth, but the circus kept feeding itself. Every blog, every exclusive leak, every screaming headline stacked pressure on the Harris dynasty like bricks on a crumbling wall. And then came the family implosion. Tiny, drained, and furious. Allegedly snapped at T.I. in the dead of night. Sources swear she screamed, "This is your fault. You pushed him to play gangster. You made him a target?" T.I., enraged, barked back, "No, you spoiled him. You made him think the world owed him." Picture the Sign King battered in ICU while his parents ripped each other apart. The empire wasn't just under siege from the outside, it was collapsing from within. Behind all the chaos, darker whispers took over. Some claimed the attack wasn't even about King, it was a warning shot aimed at T.I. himself. Others swore King had stumbled into knowledge of a bigger conspiracy involving prison deals, corrupt guards, and contraband rings, making him too dangerous to keep alive. And the most chilling rumor, that the leaked footage wasn't some random inmates recording it all, it was allowed to leak, which meant somebody powerful wanted the world to hear King spit those 9 words about his father. Somebody wanted the Harris empire cracked wide open. Social media went wild. One TikTok with 3 million views dissected the clip. "Look at King's face, you can see fear, not flex." Twitter fired back just as hard. A viral tweet read, "Imagine building an empire only for your own son to snitch on you in front of millions." The culture split. Down the middle, half roasting the family, half praying for redemption. But while the circus raged online, King's future looked darker by the day. Prosecutors hinted at piling on fresh charges tied to the footage. Prison insiders warned that once he left ICU, he'd walk back in as a marked man. His last name wasn't Armor anymore, it was a curse. One ex-inmate summed it up in brutal terms. "King Harris ain't surviving prison politics now. They smell blood, and once the sharks smell blood, it's finished." Meanwhile, T.I. yanked every string he could find. Whispers claim he rang celebrity allies, pleaded with politicians, even slid quiet payouts to anyone who might ease the storm. But the harder he pushed, the more desperate he looked. For the first time, the so-called King of the South looked trapped, and the internet devoured every second. By then, the Harris empire was collapsing in real time. Friends admitted the tension was unbearable. Old lawsuits resurfaced, ancient scandals got reposted, and even King's siblings were dragged into the circus as bloggers speculated about their futures. This wasn't just scandal anymore. This wasn't just scandal anymore. It was implosion. And the worst part, the story wasn't done, because at the end of the day, King Harris still had to face sentencing. He still had to stand before a judge. And after the leaked footage, the brutal ambush, and those 9 whispered words about his father, nobody knew if he'd walk out alive or end up buried by the system, by enemies, or by his own bloodline's cursed legacy. That's the savage truth. This wasn't some petty jail fight. This was war, a war for survival, a war for reputation, and maybe the last bloodiest war for the Harris empire itself.